welcome back to another video. I'm joined today with a special guest, which is Vinny Coyle.
Hello, how are we? All good?
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, good. Taking a lot, sitting here with my coffee, so I'm all sorted and ready for the questions to be fired away at me. So yeah, I'm very good, thank you.
Great. Would you just like to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Vinny Coyle. As it was beautifully announced a minute ago, I've been in Les Miserables twice. I was in the original production at the Queen's in 2016 when I graduated. And then from there, I went on to do the Miss Saigon UK tour, and I understudied Chris and John. And I was in that for about 22 and a half months. So it was a long old stint in that show. And then from there, went on to do the Les Miserables concerts, the stage concert, the most recent one, as Fee and first cover Andras. And then went on to do the most recent production of Phantom of the Opera on tour, which I covered and actually played in the 3 weeks that we got on. Rao as well. So that's a brief introduction to myself. Also a massive football fan. So there you go. Another interesting fact that very few people know.
What team do you support?
I'm a big Chelsea fan, big Chelsea fan. So it's a big, well, it won't be when this goes out, but big tonight is a big sort of big game for us. We're Champions League, so it's a big one, which is it's a so yeah, so it's a football mad, theatre mad, all round. Do you know what I mean? All round sort of like theatre lad, I suppose. That's what I'll go with. There you go.
So, basically, I asked my Instagram followers just to give you a few questions. So I've got a few here, and then at the end there's just a quick fire round.
Perfect.
So the first question is, what was it like covering Chris in Miss Saigon?
Well, when I grew up as a kid, my dream was to be in the army. So I used to walk around as literally like a little boy dressed in full military gear, all the action men. So for me, to go on, it's almost kind of like fulfilling my dreams in real life, really, as it from a kid. I used to go to Sandhurst. They have a big military academy there every year, and I used to go, and there used to be helicopters and tanks that you could climb all over. So basically, what I did was for 22 months lived the dream that I had as a kid, which was fantastic. And Miss Saigon will always hold a very, very sort of big part of my heart because it was the first real, and Chris, the part itself was the first lead principal I played. And I was only 22, so I was young, like, really, really young to sort of at drama school. And I think for me, it's just an epic role. Everything about it, I done Why God in singing exams when I was much younger, and it just sort of was a dream come true every night. One, I mean, you get to fly in a helicopter every night. You don't do that in many shows, which is fantastic. And just I'll never lose sight of the feeling of just the minute that show starts, as Chris, the character, it just doesn't stop. And then within the first 25 minutes of being on stage, you don't really come off stage. So you do Dreamland, you do straight into Why God, straight into Sun and Moon, straight into Last Night of the World. So it's big numbers back to back. And what's quite nice and unique about that character is you live a journey. So through those songs, you live every part of that journey. And kind of the same in Act 2 as well. When you're on, that's it. You're on then, apart from when you come off for the nightmare, you got a very quick change. But it was just fantastic. Everything about it was just, it was just, and every night was different because obviously, different covers. I think I ended up performing alongside 4 or 5 Kims. I think the same amount of Ellens. So it was a very, very cool experience, and also I got to perform it in front of Lea Salonga as well, which was incredible. That was a pretty special sort of memory for me. I think it was my second or third night that she came in Birmingham, and myself and Doreen, who was our alternate Kim, went on in front of Leia, and we got to meet her after the show, and she was really, really, really lovely. So yeah, long answer to the question, but short answer, fantastic, absolutely amazing.
Great. So the next question is, what is the best role you have covered?
Oh, now that is a question and a half. I mean, that's. I mean, talk about throwing the big one straight away. I would. Oh, I don't know. In terms of role, I would probably say Chris. It was just mammoth every night, and such a big task, very emotional every night because of the journey you have to go on as the character. I mean, going on for Rao, I managed to go on 3 times in the 3 weeks we were open, which was incredible. And that was probably the most. It's just everything's beautiful about that part. The costumes are stunning. They're all made, literally made to measure. I had my hair blow dried. They made me look old. Do you know what I mean? So that was cool as well. But I think the one thing for me, I think that'll stand out from the rest, just because of the production, was going on for Andras in the staged concert. I distinctly remember my first show was with John and Michael. So Owen Jones was playing Jean Valjean, and Michael Ball was playing Javert. And I sort of looked to my left, and it was John, and looked to my right, and it was Michael. And I was like, where, as a kid growing up, obviously Michael was original cast of Les Mis, has done everything in musical theatre. Same with John. I've followed John's career very, very closely, and as an idol of mine. And then in the evening show, it was Alfie and Michael, and it was just a magical experience. And that part, I think, for me, wearing the nice sort of the Paris outfit straight into the red waistcoat, I think that's iconic for me. Being my first show I graduated into, the red waistcoat has been very iconic in my career, in terms of, even as an amateur. I played Andras in an amateur production years ago, and I've got pictures of me in the sort of amateur costume, and then to go on and play the professional part was amazing. And then also Michael did a big shout out to my nan and granddad, which was amazing, in the audience on the first show, which was really nice of him. So I think in terms of size of parts, it would be Chris. In terms of special moment, it would be Andras.
Great. So the next question is, if you could play any role you have covered full time, who would you choose?
Good question. I'd probably it would be a toss up between Chris and Rao, I think. As much as I loved playing Andras, it's a big ask every night. It's constant every night, and it's one of those things where you're only sort of you're on the stage a limited amount of time. Do you know what I mean? So you have, whereas Chris and Rao, you have a journey throughout the show, which I really enjoyed as an actor, really sort of enjoying the whole process of the falling in love and the kind of, the whole change of a character. Because and also seeing an audience moved emotionally throughout the journey, and seeing that as an actor. I think a lot of people in the audience don't think we take that on board. It's that kind of thing of like, oh, they just do the same thing every night. Whereas, as actors, we hear the crying and we hear the sort of different effects it has on people, and that's amazing. So in terms of that, purely because it was my dream as a kid, I'd probably say Chris, just because I get to run around as a soldier every night and fly in a helicopter. But Rao was pretty cool as well. So I would say Chris still.
Great. So, as you mentioned, you obviously covered Andras in stage concert of Les Mis. So how did you feel when you actually got that phone call to say you got that job?
Well, it was pretty mental, actually. I got within about 3 days, I was offered Phantom and Les Mis. So I was offered Phantom first, the Phantom tour first, and then I got a call from my agent again to say, "Oh, just to let you know, would you like to do the Les Mis concert?" And I was like, "Oh my god, this is like the dream week. It's like the best week ever." That was a real sort of moment where I sort of, as my sort of younger self was like looking over me, going, like congratulations. Do you know what I mean? It's that real sort of magical moment. Um, I think I knew the concert was going to be big. It wasn't until I sort of realised who was in the cast and we were going to be alongside each other. I knew Brad was playing Andras because when I came in to sing through some Andras stuff, they said, "Oh, just let you know you'll be covering Bradley." So I knew that Bradley would be playing the part. But it wasn't until the leads were announced, obviously Michael, Carrie, Matt. I'd worked with Katie before, Katie Seacombe, on the 2016 when I did it originally. And it was quite nice, and it was everybody I've sort of heard about throughout the show. And then to sort of, I've worked with Craig before, worked with Ollie Brennan before. So it was really nice to kind of we sort of all come back together so as a family, which is nice. That's the thing with Les Mis is once you're in Les Mis,
you can't play.
Absolutely, you kind of become a bit, it becomes a family. And that was really nice to sort of, I'd never worked with Carrie before, and she's absolutely like, as a human being, she's a beautiful human being, bless her. Same with Matt. Matt is just such a lovely human being. Just everybody in that cast was just great. But I mean, on that day I got the call, I was just like, it was sort of, my jaw hit the floor. Do you know what I mean? I was a bit like, it was, and the first time I did it, I was really young, and it was my dream show. And I think I got a bit overawed by it. It was sort of like, oh my god, I'm doing Les Mis. Like everything was kind of a bit, yeah, I suppose it was overawed by it. It was that kind of experience of sort of everything sort of came very fast at me for a 21-year-old. So going back into it, I felt like I had another opportunity to kind of really relax into the show, especially playing a singular part every night and then covering as well. Whereas the first time I did it, I was a swing, so I covered, I think it's over 10 tracks I covered the first time. So it's a lot of things to learn the first time. But yeah, it was just magical. It was magical. It's something you dream of as an actor in musical theatre. So yeah.
Great. So the next question is, what has been the best show you have worked on?
Oh, it's another good question. I loved Phantom. Absolutely adored it. For the time I worked on it, everything, it's just so clever. The show, the way it's lit, the way the music is written. Andrew's music is fantastic. Working with Killian was amazing. Genuinely one of the nicest guys I've ever met in musical theatre, and also the most inspiring leading man to perform alongside and to have leading your company. If I go on to do something like Killian, I would like to think that that's the sort of how people would look at me to inspire, even your fellow castmates. So I'd probably say, in terms of short term effects it had on me, I would say Phantom. In terms of long term and overall experience, I'd say Miss Saigon. I stayed on the show for a reason. I loved everything about it. It's funny, it's dramatic, it's got love in it. It's horrific at times. I don't know if I've mentioned before, there's a helicopter in it. So if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry I've spoiled it for you. But yeah, it's just, for me, Miss Saigon has everything that you could ask from a musical. It's very cinematic. My dad's not a massive musical fan, but loved Miss Saigon, loved it. It's like watching a film every night. For guys, there's guns, there's girls, there's helicopters, there's everything. Do you know what I mean? You could ask for. There's fighting. Do you know what I mean? So it's just amazing. And some cracking tunes too. So yeah, I would probably go overall. I would go Miss Saigon.
Yeah, like with Miss Saigon, it's one of those. It's like your typical action war film, but on a stage.
Absolutely. You nailed it in one there. Yeah. You couldn't ask for. It's a bit like watching Saving Private Ryan with songs. That's what it's a bit like. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of sort of epic non-stop action. Doesn't matter what's happening. You know, you're sort of throwing a love story as well, and it's exactly that. And that's why it's so epic to be involved in every night. It just doesn't stop. When you know, as soon as that diddly diddly starts, that's it. The show doesn't stop from there. You know, regardless of who you are, whether you're in the ensemble, whether you play Chris, whether you play Kim, it just doesn't stop. And that's the best thing about it. It is a roller coaster every night for people. So, and that's why audiences love it, because it doesn't stop. You know, you don't have that feeling of, oh God, when's the interval? Do you know what I mean? Which you never should have in a musical, but sometimes you do. So yeah.
So the next question is, what is your dream role?
In terms of, I can answer this in two ways. So long term, Valjean Phantom have always been my dreams. He says repping the beard. So I've always said Phantom over Valjean, which I think is a bit sort of weird, a bit of a weird one. Phantom for me, the time you spend on stage to convince the audience that they should be for you and not against you as an audience, I think is a real task every night. Not only do you have to sing probably the most well-known musical theatre song of all time, Bar Bring Him Home, you've got to deliver that within the space of 30 minutes or whatever you are. I think it's just under 30 minutes Phantom's physically on stage for out of the 2.5 hours. Whereas Valjean, you're on stage for the entire piece. So you have that whole journey process for the audience to come with you on. Whereas with Phantom, it's literally like that, and you have to, you're either with him or you're not. You know, so, and also for me, it's a big sing Phantom. It's, you know, and not that Valjean isn't, but you can kind of sing yourself into that show. Phantom's a bit like Honduras in the fact that you kind of got to switch it on and then switch it off. That's it. Yeah, and I think that's the long-term goals. Short-term goals, Elder Price, would love to play Elder Price. What else would I like to do? I'd like to do Raoul. I really would like to go back. I haven't had enough time on Phantom as a show yet. I would love to do that. I loved everything about playing that role. And then I'd like to do, the two I'd really like to do would be Catch Me If You Can. So I'd like to be in that. I'd also like to be in Next to Normal and play Gabe in Next to Normal. I think that's a really epic part. So they're the sort of the ones I'd go for. If I was to say one, to pick one, I would say Elder Price. I mean, that is a huge part to do every night. You got to be funny, you got to dance, you got to sing, and you got to sing incredibly high, and you don't leave the stage for like the whole show. So I think for me, that's up there. Would be sort of Elder Price would be sort of up there with the top to achieve.
So you've obviously done quite a couple of UK tours. So where would you say the best places, like where you've visited, that you have toured?
I'll give you a straight out answer. Dublin. Absolutely love Dublin. It has everything. Dublin has great audiences, a great theatre, a lot of stairs, but a great theatre. Great places to eat, great places and things to do on your day off. And it's a beautiful city. Everybody's so friendly. Kind of feels a bit like you're on holiday because you have to fly there, which is great. In terms of within the UK, I would probably say Manchester, because Manchester has everything. I didn't realize, I'd never been to Manchester before I toured, and it is literally like a mini London. It's fantastic, and I'm a massive lover of coffee. Coffee shops are fantastic, and it's just great there. Like, you know, obviously I'm a massive football fan, so it's just, you know, it's a city of football, which is great. The venue's fantastic. There's loads of shows around, obviously, because you've got the Exchange, you've got all the theatres there, the Palace. which, and I just loved it. I'm also, you get some really good digs there as well. So it feels a bit more like you're settled down in a city. I mean, we were there for 9 weeks on Saigon, so it was a long time. And then we were due to be there for, I think, 10 weeks on Phantom, because it was going to be our big opening venue. So, but it feels like city life. It doesn't really feel like you're not living in London when you're in Manchester. Yeah, so I would say Dublin in terms of overall experience, but in the UK, I would say Manchester.
Yeah, Manchester is where I live, but it's like Greater Manchester, so it's just like a little town.
Yeah.
Like around it.
Yeah.
Like every time I see a touring production, I think there's only been like 3 theatres that I've actually ever been to.
Yeah.
I'd either go to Manchester, Liverpool, or Sheffield.
Yeah.
They're just like the closest that I can like get to.
Yeah, of course.
But I have like travelled to Bradford. I've done London there and back in a day, which was crazy of me, but I did it.
Bless you.
But yeah, Manchester to me is probably got one of the best venues ever.
Yeah,
it really has. And I actually did have front row tickets for Phantom in Manchester.
Oh well, I'm gutted that you didn't see it, because it was a very good production. It was a very good production.
Like, I was literally when it was first announced. I've never seen Phantom. Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen it. And when it was first announced, I was umming and ahhing whether to make that trek to Leicester. It was like that. I was like, right, do I do this? Do I not? And I didn't end up doing it because I knew it was coming to Manchester next.
Yeah.
And then COVID came and bite me on the backside.
Yeah, but it's funny you say that, because I purposely didn't book anybody in to come and see it, because I was like, look, I'm on the tour for 18 months. Like, it's a long tour. I'm going to have loads of, Southampton's my closest venue, so I'll have loads of people in at Southampton. I was going to have some scheduled dates in Southampton, some holiday stuff. So I knew that I was going to have shows. I knew I was going to have Raoul shows when I was there. And then I managed, luckily, it was the week of press night, and it was the Saturday morning I got a call to say that our Raoul was going off. Which we now think was suspect COVID, which is, not ideal. But I got my mum and dad up to come and see the show, and it was my mum's birthday. So they managed to see me not only on press night, they came press night to see the show, but they actually got to see me on as Raoul as well, which was, very, very lucky. But yeah, it was literally like, right, last minute, come on, get up here now, jump in the car. Do you know what I mean? And it's a bit like that when you cover, especially when you're on tour. It's like, they've done some crazy stuff. I did one show as John in Miss Saigon, and I was in Norwich, and I rang my mum up in the morning. I said, just a heads up, I think I'm going on tonight as John. And she said, well, I don't think we can get there. It's a long way to go. So bless her, she rang me up and she said, right, we're in the car, we're on our way. Well, you better have tickets. She was like, because if we get there and you don't have tickets, we're going to be seriously annoyed. And yeah, it was amazing. So I managed to get them up, and my nan and granddad as well, which was fantastic. So yeah, it was a really cool experience. But yeah, in terms of venues, definitely Manchester.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with you on that one.
Yeah, perfect.
So the next question is, how have you been remaining stagey during lockdown?
Oh, it's funny. I've got my my thingy top on, my support the theatre top on under here. So keeping it stagey that way. In terms stagey, I teach through. I've taught all the way through lockdown. I decided to create my own singing business through lockdown. I started teaching through an old drama group of mine where I trained when I was really, really young. I used to go there sort of once a week to do sort of Amdram musical theatre. I'm now their patron, which is crazy because they're opening a BTEC course, which just shows you how times have moved on, which is very exciting. So I was teaching there, and while I was teaching there, one of the teachers there said, "Why don't you open your own? Why don't you start teaching? You're quite good at it. Like, you've got some good experience behind you." So I've literally done that since, and I've been really lucky with students. Like, the students I've got are fantastic. Really, really good standard of student. They all really commit to my lessons, which is I love. and it's allowed me to stay creative. You know, that's the biggest thing. Sort of, it's not been the worst thing. Hasn't not been working. The worst thing for me is trying to stimulate that creativity that I have every night, because you know, we come in and we create every night. Whether it's set or not, we're still creating. It's different audiences, different show every night. So for me, it was that kind of thing of, oh my God, I'm just sitting here watching Netflix or Disney Plus, which has been a godsend, by the way. Disney Plus and Netflix have saved my life so many times, because there's always something different on there. So yeah, so I think for me that was a big thing for me, keeping it stagey through that. Also watching a lot of stuff during the first lockdown. Obviously, the concert was released, so I got to watch that, which was pretty cool. Really bizarre seeing myself in like ultra HD. I'm like, oh God, my hair's a bit out there. Should have made sure that my hair was a sort of, but yeah, great experience. And then obviously watch Killian in Kinky Boots. You know, it got to be done. I made a lovely comment to Killian, bless him, when I saw him in the boots at the end. I was like, I really hope you've still got those, because I might have to try them on and give them a whirl. Bless him. And he replied back and he just said, absolutely not. He said, they're staying where they are. I said, I'm not giving them to you. You'll end up like ruining them. Bless him. So yeah, so I watched Hamilton for the first time. Never seen Hamilton before. Thought that was fantastic. What else have I done? Obviously auditioned for a few times. Sort of kept it busy with auditions, or semi-busy, I should say, in terms of lockdown auditions. And that's it really. It's been, and this is going to sound really bad, it's been quite nice to switch off. Well, for the first 6 months, it was quite nice to switch off, because you're so on the go when you're on tour, when you're in a show. It's literally like go, go, go every day. People kind of think that we just wake up, we have all day off, every day off, and then we just go in and do the show, and it really doesn't work that way. So yeah, it was quite nice for the first sort of 6 months to go, right, nobody else is working. There's no sort of want and need for me to do anything. But apart from that, I've learned a bit of guitar, and I've been singing. I bought myself a studio mic, so I've been doing some singing and recording, editing, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's it really. I'd love to say I've been sort of like creating my own musicals and running around in stagey attire, but I haven't. It's kind of been quite nice to sort of pull myself away from that world, really, because I think if I'd have stayed attached to it too much, it would have affected me mentally. I think the fact that I wasn't working and the fact that I didn't have a job, I think that would have affected me quite a lot. So it was my kind of defense mechanism to pull myself away so I could keep positive, rather than sort of stay attached to something, and sort of let it affect me, I think was the way. So, but yeah, that's how I've remained stagey.
Yeah, I've kind of been like similar, like watching every single pro shop bootleg you can think of, listening to cast recordings, checking the news to see when Boris wants to stop being a muppet and open theatres.
Tell me about it, right? Tell me about it. You couldn't have said it any better. The sooner he gets theatres open, the better.
And obviously I've been like making YouTube videos, trying to keep myself occupied. I also got into Glee during the first lockdown, which was probably the biggest mistake of my life. I'm now obsessed, but that's for another time.
but it's kept you busy, right? So, and yes, it's not the best thing to be addicted to, in terms of like, oh my God, I need to sit here and watch 500 episodes, which is exactly what I've been like of everything over the lockdown. It's that thing of like, you put something on, it's like, well, I've watched one episode now, I might as well just finish the series. Like 10 hours later, you're like, oh, I've just watched 4 seasons of like, yeah, do you know what I mean? But again, it's like, it's that thing of, I think a lot of the time for me, I was like, oh my God, I need to be doing something. And then I realized, like, what can I actually do? Do you know what I mean? I can't do anything. Do you know what I mean? You know, it's a really bizarre situation to be in, because my body wants to go, and everybody wants, I need to work, I need to do this, I need to do this. And it's sort of like, well, I can't do that because I can't do anything. Do you know what I mean? It's that really sort of odd situation. So yeah, so I totally agree with you.
So like you mentioned before, obviously the stage concert of Les Mis was obviously streamed, and I actually went to watch it in the cinema, and I thought it was absolutely incredible because I actually couldn't get down to London to see it because tickets were sold out every single night.
Yeah.
Like, it was an absolute sellout. So obviously it got streamed into cinema so more people can see it, and obviously now there's a cast recording, there's a DVD of it. So how how did like the whole cast react when obviously Cameron said, right, you're gonna be in cinemas?
I mean, we knew about the cast album pretty early on. So the album, they said about the album, we must have been about 3 or 4 weeks in. They let us know that we were going to do a live album, pretty similar to what they did with Miss Saigon when it was in town. We knew from sort of pretty early on it was going to be pretty special. The first day we were in rehearsal, we sang the whole show, which was, you don't do that on the first day. Do you know what I mean? We literally turned up. They went, here's your harmony parts. Da 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 da. That was it. You know, bum bum dun dun. We just sang the show, and it was a magical experience. And then obviously when it came to light that it was going to be, we knew it had sold out. You know, I mean, it was ridiculous. Tickets were going for ridiculous prices, and as a cast member, it was a nightmare to get anybody in as well, because it was like, you know, if you went on for a cover, like I know, you know, I remember my first Andras show. I got my nan and granddad in the matinee, and then my mum and dad in the evening, and it was just like it was a real struggle to get them in the show. It was like, you know, where. And I think my nan and granddad had the director's seats, and my mum and dad had the same seats in the evening show because it was the only seats that we could get. So it was crazy. And then they announced. Well, Cameron told us himself. He came on stage before one of the shows and said, "Look, we've got an idea that we'd like to film it. We're not 100% sure what that deal is yet. However, just to let you know, if you would like to be involved, we'd love to have you all involved in the filming." And then it wasn't until I think about 2 months to the end, because we did a 16-week run. So I reckon, yeah, it was probably about just over halfway through, they told us that we'd be recording it. And it was literally like, oh my God, we're going to be involved in like the new big version of this show. And obviously we knew it was going to be something different because it was filmed live in a theatre, not in an arena. So it was much more intimate. We knew the cast was pretty spectacular. Obviously, you know, it was a 25-piece orchestra every night, which was fantastic to be involved in. And it was just, yeah, it was just special. It was just, and it just felt like it was the 25th had sort of had its time in terms of, it just got so people weren't sort of still using the 25th. Do you know what I mean? And when Cameron decided that we were going to film this production, I think he realised it was pretty special pretty early on, and then they got in touch with Universal, and the filming days were just mental. Like, we came in, they recorded about 3 or 4 shows the week prior, to get for sound balance and stuff. And I was actually on for Andras, which was really weird because I ended up doing the last week of the show. I ended up doing 5 shows because Bradley was ill, because he was rehearsing Javert and Andras at the same time as playing Andras. So it's a busy time for him. And it was just mental. It was just absolutely mental. Like, we had camera crews in, there was chairs being taken out, there's big arm cameras flying around everywhere. Obviously, then you've got the live audiences, then you've got sort of like people following you down the stairs with like big old cameras and stuff. And it's probably the most nerve-wracking, especially the live one that went live to the cinemas. I've never been so nervous in all of my life, knowing that sort of, we knew the DVD was going to come out later on, but the live performance that went sort of live straight to the cinemas was that thing of, right, we get one chance of this, don't mess it up. So it was a real good experience for me, sort of how to control my nerves. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I didn't have masses to do, but I had a fair amount to do in sort of, you know, I was lucky with the part I had. but yeah, I just remember being really nervous before. Let them come if they dare. We'll be there. I was like, please, 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 just come out. And I loved it. I loved it, and the buzz around the building was amazing. But like, the wardrobe department all day were like, right, we need to make sure everything looks right. Make sure you sort of, if you're going to be clean shaven, really be clean shaven. Your hair needs to be bang on perfect. Because obviously for cross cuts, your hair needs to look identical to the cut before. So yeah, so it was just great. It was just a great experience to be involved in, and again, just a magic one of those experiences you never think you're going to be involved in, and it was sort of real, a real honor and a privilege to be involved in. One, the show, and two, something that's going to be timeless for people will be watching in 20, 25 years time, and I can go, I was involved in that. I can show my kids in 20 years time, look, Dad was in this show. Do you know what I mean? We're sort of, some famous people. Do you know what I mean? And involved in this magical sort of experience. So it was pretty cool, pretty memorable.
So the next question is, what is the most embarrassing thing that has ever happened to you on stage?
I get asked this quite a lot, and there's sort of not a lot. There's one, but not a lot of like crazy stuff's happened. I've split my trousers a couple of times, but I'm quite good at hiding stuff like that. No one sort of realizes. I had a moment in Miss Saigon. We were in, where were we? We were in Plymouth, and it was really hot on stage because we had that freak summer. Well, not last year, the year before. Not last year, not the year before that. The year before that. We had a really crazy, really long summer. And it was like 25 minimum every day. And I was on for Chris for about 4 or 5 days, I think it was. I think Ashley, it might have even been long, it might have been a week. I think Ashley was on holiday, who was playing Chris. And we'd left the back doors open to let some air into the stage. But a fly I don't know if it was a fly or a bee, and I could feel it around my head for the whole number of Last Night of the World. Yeah, it was Last Night of the World, I think. At the beginning of it, and it landed on my nose, and I was like, oh no. And I was petrified to open my mouth to sing. Because it sort of buzzed around here and sort of like, so it was fine. I thought it'd gone away. And then just as I went to sing I went about to go and sing a song played on a solo set, it literally straight in my mouth. So I opened up to sing a song, and it like flew around my tonsils and then flew out again. And it made my voice go, so literally sort of like, it literally flew straight in my mouth, sort of did a like roundabout around my tonsils and then flew out again. And it was awful. But it was hilarious. I sort of, bless her, I think I was on with Doreen again, and she sort of looked at me, and she was watching it fly around my head, fly in my throat, and then flew out again. And she sort of looked at me and just sort of laughed at me. But that's probably the most embarrassing moment I've had. I don't think anything else sort of massively, touch wood, nothing else massively bad's happened. Like I said, I've split my trousers a couple of times, obviously fallen over a couple of times. That's just sort of part and parcel of it. Missed a couple of lines when I was in Les Mis. So someone will be, we're on the barricade if I was covering some tracks. And missed some, someone sort of not sung their line, and you go, well, that's not my line. And then you slowly realise that, oh yeah, I'm actually covering that track today. Yeah, it is my line. But that happens quite a lot, especially when there's a lot of people off. But yeah, that's probably the most embarrassing, I think, is the fly story. I wouldn't like a repeat of that because it was pretty horrific.
So the next question is, do you have any behind the scenes stories that you can share or want to share?
Interesting. Yeah, I do have one. So we were in rehearsals. We were in rehearsals for, I think it was Morning of the Dragon for Saigon, and we were just doing a spacing call to a new venue, and one of the lads that was in the ensemble, I won't mention his name, bless him, but he he'd fallen asleep in the wings. So we come on to do a staging call, and he was the bed comes on in the hotel. There's a sort of a bed, and we sort of looked round, and it was quite a key because it's all about formations, that number. Sort of looking around, I'm like, where's he gone? So I looked into the wing, and he's fast asleep in the wing on the bed, spark out, literally fast asleep with his gun in his hand, literally fast asleep on the bed. So that was hilarious. But other backstage stories, trying to think. Oh yeah, so one of the lads come down for, I don't know, was it no, I think it was Les Mis, come down in the wrong costume. So he was a swing. Was he? No, we were doing the Les Mis concert, and he came down in the wrong costume for the beginning of Act One. So he came down in a guard costume instead of a convict, and it wasn't until the music went bum bum that he went, "Oh my god, I'm in the wrong costume." And it was like literally ran upstairs. I've never seen someone move so fast in all of my life. But there's loads of sort of stuff that happens backstage that you sort of, some I probably can't tell you, but there's a lot of sort of banter that goes on backstage. Sort of like a lot of there's a load of games that go on backstage, moving of bottles, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, people wearing other people's costumes, that kind of thing. I remember, this is an onstage one, which I probably shouldn't tell you, but I will anyway. And I won't name him. But in one of the scenes, actually, there's two. There's two moments. So both in Saigon. One of the lads come on from Dreamland, and he's a waiter in the show, and we'd sort of hand out drinks and stuff in the scene Dreamland. And he came on one day, and instead of drinks, he was just eating his lunch. So eating an apple, eating a sandwich, just on stage, in the middle of stage. And then the second one was I think one of my good friend's last shows in the cast, and he was cover. Trying to think what that part's called. Assistant commissar, and he came on, and in the bit where Chris meets Tui for the first time, they have a confrontation and they point guns at each other, and then he backs away out the Dreamland truck and off stage. The assistant commissar then backs him up normally with a handgun. Well, the guy that did it with me, I turned around and I was expecting him to have a handgun, and he had two AK-47s. He had a handgun tucked in his shorts. He had two bullet vests on and a hand grenade in one hand. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Just one of those things you weren't expecting. So that was pretty hilarious. But yeah, there's not really sort of a lot of the because they're quite serious, the shows I do. There's not sort of a lot of stuff that goes on. There's always someone that falls off the revolve in Les Mis, in the old version of Les Mis. Always someone that happens to. So yeah, that they would probably be the backstage goss. Apart from if you've got a couple in the show, they're sort of like, kissing in the wings, all that kind of stuff. That still goes on. But apart from that, that's it really. There's sort of nothing. I'd love to be able to tell you that there's sort of loads of malarkey. There probably is, but I'm just never involved in it because I'm too professional this year. So that's sort of my stories.
So the final question is, how do you feel now that Boris has finally mentioned theatres and that they can reopen in May?
Woo! I'm just extremely excited. Extremely excited. I think we underestimate this country, how much theatre we rely on theatre. I read a really interesting stat right at the beginning of lockdown, actually, and it was theatre, or the theatre industry brings in as much income into the country as Premier League football does. And that's considering that's got betting behind it, considering that's got huge transfer sums, that is an incredible amount of money that it brings in. I've been back into London now a few times for specific reasons. Breaking no violations, don't worry, everybody. And it's not the same. like, you know, and that was even when we were sort of allowed out again in restaurants and stuff last summer. You know, the theaters weren't open, and that's what people go to do. Do you know what I mean? And even if you're not going to the theater, it's that kind of thing of like, you see people going into a theater and you go, oh, what, you know, wonder what that's like, or or do you remember when we went to the theater? And it's everybody's got an experience around it. And it's the same with, it's like having New York without Broadway. It's totally defeats the object of going somewhere like that. And it's just a buzz. London misses the buzz so much. And not only that, like, you look at the UK touring circuit, and every venue, Leicester, whether it be Leicester, whether it be Manchester, whether it be whatever it be, the venue wise, it brings in money, brings in tourism, brings in, people from outside. The tourism I know that Manchester gets from the three big theatres they've got there is massive. So for me, like, the quicker we can get theatre back up and running, the better. Not only that, the people that have missed out on the funding in terms of the government funding scheme that was given out, a lot of people have missed out due to financial, insufficient financial reasons that don't quite meet that sort of the funding system. So a lot of people have had to go to, I saw Bradley Jaden last night on BBC News. And I'm so glad that people like that are being able to tell their story, that the fact that, Bradley's a phenomenal talent, and deserves to be up in the theatre every night. That boy never, incredibly hardworking, does everything that you should do, very professional, does the show 110% out every night. And he's working as a builder. Do you know what I mean? And it's that kind of thing of, I don't think people really realise that. I don't think it's not that they don't consider acting as a job, but it's that kind of thing of, yeah, but they're only actors. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So for us, like, I've been lucky. I went to work at an escape room for 6 months. I've been obviously teaching online. I've done workshops. So, and you have to make money any way you can, really. So the fact that he's turned around and said there's actually a start date, or a potential start date, is the best news possible. Not only for London, but for the whole of the country. The touring circuit, the obviously the West End theatres, but then you've got the cast themselves. Then you've got the backstage crew. You've got the front of house crew, the catering crew that look after obviously all the people that come in, the bar staff, the administrators. The people that look after the theatres. Obviously all the Cameron's teams, all of the sort of all the casting teams, anybody to do with sort of the production side value of it, they will have jobs again. Do you know what I mean? So it's not just, I think people go, oh, it's just the cast that are missing out, and it's not. It's everybody. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I just can't wait. I'm so super excited. So yeah, so I hope that answers your questions. Do you have any more questions off the cuff stuff?
We just got a quick fire round.
Fire them away. Are these one-word answers, or are these?
Try to keep them to one word.
Perfect.
Right. Favorite musical?
Oh, I mean, that's hard. Les Mis.
Plays or musicals?
Musicals.
West End or Broadway?
West End, every day.
Show you want to see revived?
I'll say Miss Saigon. But one that hasn't come here yet, Next to Normal. I know it's not a revival, but Next to Normal would be amazing.
Favorite theatre you have performed in?
Oh, good question. The Millennium Centre in Wales. Loved it. It's enormous and it's beautiful.
And finally, the last one that caused a debate is cereal soup.
Oh. As in breakfast cereal?
Yeah.
Oh, that is a good question.
It caused the debate for so long.
What? Just out of interest, what have other people said? Won't influence my decision.
Some people have said no. Some people think I lost the plot.
So that's a very interesting. Do you know what? I've never thought about that before in my life. Not that I ever would do, but it's a very good question just to finish with. I would say yeah. It's like a breakfast soup, I suppose, isn't it? Because it's liquid, right? I know it's got stuff in it, but you wouldn't say like. I suppose you wouldn't call tea soup because it's tea, but like it's like a milk soup with stuff in it, right? So if you were to have like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Well, why not? Why not? Let's break the mold. I'm gonna go breakfast soup. The soup of breakfast. There we go.
Literally, it caused a debate for so long.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. I've never been asked anything like that before, but it's a very good question. So I'm going to go yes, breakfast soup.
All right. So that comes to the end, guys. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you all soon for another video.